Internet, hello you absolute lovelies. Let's talk all about Gen V Season 2, Episode 7. We have reached the penultimate episode of this second season. This episode, we had a giant reveal finally come to pass. We had a lot of really cool team dynamics, and one of my favorite beats of the season, which was a great bit of satire on superhero lore and imagery in general. Very excited to talk about that. This is going to be a spoiler-filled review for Episode 7, so if you haven't seen the episode yet, go watch it. Come right back here. If you're new to this page, I cover lots and lots of comic book stuff. I read about 50 to 70 comics every single week, and in a live stream, I break down all of those, as well as the biggest comic news and comic reviews of that week. I also cover movies and TV in general, so if you like movies, you like TV, and especially if you like comic books, hit that subscription bell. Also, leave a like in this video, so I know you like this video, and most of all, let's have a conversation in the comments below. I want to know what you thought about that twist, and spoiler warning, getting into spoilers in 3, 2, 1. That twist being that Cipher is Godolkin and Godolkin is Cipher. Now, a lot of people had predicted this twist. I'd seen it written in various, comments and such, but I still really like how it played out. Even kind of anticipating it, it was a worthy delivery of reveal because the emotion was there. I was really invested in Cipher in a very, he's a terrifying, infinitely charming, charismatic, it's Hamish Linklater, that's the word. Hamish Linklater is such a force of nature. And then you've also got his transformation that we saw kind of dabbled in through flashbacks and stuff. And now we got that dude from Wicked as our actual entity that is Godolkin. Very curious what that turns into next week. But on the journey there, we had the transformation of polarity. We had Marie actually do what basically Cipher's been pushing her into doing, which is curing using her powers of blood. And then, of course, the ultimate version of that, completely curing Cipher himself, who has been steering this dude that looks like Hamish Linklater. So very curious if, what level of soup that dude was, what's going to be happening here. Really impressed with the performance and experience of how much we care about Hamish Linklater, even though he's been an absolute monster, how much you're like, no, don't hurt him. Fascinating little bit of that amongst all of this. Also really enjoyed a lot of the team dynamics in this episode. The episode starts with Marie and Kate going off on their own, obviously from the cliffhanger of last week. Last week I did talk about how that episode didn't really work for me. This episode did. This felt like a very good, solid, the average episode of Gen V is pretty great, and this was right there in back to lockstep. But the opening of the episode has them on the run, trying to decide if she's going to fix Kate. And I really enjoy that there is some actual stakes to what she's done wrong. I really enjoy that there are elements of no, there are consequences to your actions. You cannot actually, just get away with betraying us. So I like that she doesn't just heal Kate. So that conversation I found really interesting. And then you've got the whole team discovering what's actually going on and then reconvening at the school. We had a fascinating moment with Bondage Baby and Diaper parallel to where we got to with Godolkin. And that is my favorite moment of the episode, is the final beat with Godolkin. This is the comic book image that I wanted to talk about. This is my favorite beat imagery-wise of the episode. Godolkin ends up being in, a diaper-esque outfit, which looks a lot like your trunks in comic books, and then he has a blanket, which looks a lot like a cape, and he's walking off into the distance, and it's very much like what Magneto and, in some ways, Sentry and Superman, and those characters that have the giant trunks and capes, it looks so much like that, but as a satirical nod to the absurdity of that outfit, which I really appreciated. I love Godolkin in his super villain fit of diaper and blanket old man style. So yeah, I really enjoyed that image. I thought it was hilarious, but it was also funny because we had another guy in a diaper, but because of a kink and because of swearing into a school. So I thought that was really interesting. I was really impressed that they really landed the imposingness of Godolkin in his normal form with only having met him as a scientist guy. I feel the weight of Godolkin, that transformation and what that actor was doing with his, evil villain monologue felt very, Voldemort-y and very pulling the strings for 60 years. This happened in the 60s and all the things he's been behind. So really dig that. As always, I'm really impressed with the acting in this show. I think all the stuff from Polarity was really impressive. I really liked the scene of healing him and that giddy relief of not feeling that pain anymore, that feeling of euphoria of not having something like weighing on you like that, and what Marie's been able to do with conveying like her reluctance and stubbornness, but not being so off-putting you don't care about the character. I really think they do a good job like making Marie very strong-willed, but not being someone that you can't identify with. Like, she's strong-willed in a very identifiable way. She's stubborn, but that's her character, and it doesn't make her lesser of a person. She does struggle with team dynamics. She does struggle with, you know, what it's going to be a team player, which I'm assuming is where we get with the last episode next season. We've now seen her heal polarity. We've now seen her heal Godolkin. We've got to have a big team up fight. We've got to have something happen where it's everyone against Godolkin. What I'm curious about is how that affects the overall school. Like, how does Godolkin coming back affect the superhero world? Is he going to be the big bad for, you know, the boys? Is this villain got to transfer over to being our ultimate bad guy, a la Voldemort, into the boys in general? Because his power set seems pretty all-encompassing and crazy if he can control someone like Cipher for that long. I'm also curious, like, how did that Cipher guy come into this situation, and what happens there? So there's a lot that the next episode has to answer. Are we going to get a setup for what happens in The Boys season 5? Are we going to get a big bad with Godolkin? Are we going to get elements of the team disbanding or teaming up? Is the sister going to be on the side of Marie? Like, you know, Marie and her sister were so separate for so long. Like, Marie's sister saw her as a monster, and now we see the precog ability is something that she had all along. I loved that twist too, by the way. That twist of basically recontextualizing Marie's guilt and the fact that she was blaming Marie and that she actually had that vision, but as a way to cope, she projected that onto Marie and hated her because it was easier to hate her than to hate herself as much for what she thinks she might have been able to solve. And I really like recontextualizing twists, and I really like their sister dynamics. I'm really curious where that ends up in the finale. Is that sister character going to be part of Gen V Season 3? Is that sister character someone who does forgive Marie? So that dynamic's really cool. I'm still very interested in how Sam and Emma end up in the end. I'm really curious how Kate ends up in the end. What happens to Kate? She's had one of the craziest arcs this season. What happens with Jordan and Marie? Wow, this finale has to do a lot of things. So we gotta figure out what all those interpersonal dynamics end up being, as well as our big Godolkin bad, I assume, mega fight, or does it end on a cliffhanger where Godolkin is all healed and it's about to be a mega fight, and that big thing is what sets up the boys, where it's like, is Godolkin so bad that, you know, the boys get brought in, or Homelander or whatever, and that's something to take on? Because this whole season has been about building Marie up to be strong enough to take on Homelander. Optically, that's what she was told. Obviously, we know it was to actually fix Godolkin, but is she someone strong enough to take on Homelander? And is Godolkin in that same vein? Because he, you know, Giancarlo Esposito said Godolkin could take on Homelander himself. So is that going to be where we end next week? And that's what I'm very curious about. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. This was our penultimate episode that set up all the stakes, so we can find out next week what happens in the big old Season 2 finale. So I'd love to hear your theories down below. Please leave a like in this video so I know you like this video. And also, if you haven't subscribed, you just watched 8 minutes of me talking. So I think we identify with each other. Hit that subscription bell. All right, I'll see you next week for the finale of Gen V Season 2. Bye, all.